Hello there, my darling dragon friends. My name is Ariel. I am the Sassy Dragon, and today we are going to be doing a review and smelling the most current Miss Dior Eau de Parfum from Dior. And I don't know if that's catching there. I have a little sample of this on a card and a little bottle, but this was released in 2021. It is the most current Miss Dior Eau de Parfum, and I have already smelled this. And I have thoughts, so let's go ahead and get right into it. We're going to spray this on, and we're going to let that air out just a little bit while we read the notes that are in this one. Now, François Demachy is the nose perfumer behind this and pretty much all of the modern day Miss Dior's. And normally I really do love his fragrances in general, but this one falls a little bit flat for me, I will tell you. The top notes are iris, peony, lily of the valley. And I think the peony in this is partly something about the way it's blended here, and I usually like peony notes, but this one is blended a little weird for me. The middle notes are apricot, rose, and peach, so it's got some fruitiness in there for sure. Not the strawberry notes that, you know, are in the newest one that I just reviewed this the other day. It was the newest for 2024 is just the Parfum, which is different from the Eau de Parfum. It's hard to keep them all in line. I know there's so many different versions. The base notes on this are vanilla, musk, tonka bean, benzoin, and sandalwood. But for me, the base is a lot lighter on this. Compared to the newest one that we did, the Parfum, this one has a very woodsy base. A lot of strawberry in there, jasmine. Really enjoyed this one, actually. It reminds me a good bit of Yves Saint Laurent's Mon Paris. It did kind of, you know, compare them to each other a little bit because of the notes in the Parfum. But it's a more woodsy, less bright strawberry. It's a beautiful blend. I've gotten a lot of compliments on it. But the reason that this newest Miss Dior from 2021, I had smelled this before. It's been a while, and every time I show the card, that's what the bottle looks like, but the camera wants to keep going in and out. Anyway, when I first smelled this when it was released, I remember being disappointed by it, and I had the same thought that I still have when I smell this again. And it smells like a fragranced plastic doll. There were a lot of those in the 80s when I was a kid, and it smells like that. I had a rose, like there was a set of dolls called Rose Petal Place. It didn't last a real long time, but it had its little niche in the 80s for a minute, and me and my sister were kind of crazy about them, and they were these dolls that were supposed to be different flowers. You had the rose doll, the daffodil, iris, orchid, etc. And boy, for some reason, there is this powdery, almost plasticky, floral thing happening in this fragrance. It's not as strong when you first spray it, but boy, when this thing dries down, it just becomes more and more floral, powdery plastic 80s doll. Which is a really interesting, very specific kind of memory. But if you grew up in the 80s and ever had any of these, you know, scented toys were like a big thing for girls. I remember there were My Little Ponies that were scented at one point. There were a whole big bunch of them. And the fruits in this are a little more short-lived. I kind of like the fruitier part of it. The peach and the apricot are nice because it gives just a, I wouldn't call it totally sparkly quality, but it gives it just a little bit of spark, a little bit of something different. You know, they really emphasize the rose in this. To me, I smell way more of the peony than the rose. And that for me, you know, as compared to the 2017 version of Miss Dior, I just liked that one so much more. And they don't make that anymore, but I will tell you, the there's a dupe company called Dossier, and they make a lot of different, you know, impressions of famous fragrances, and they do still make the 2017 Miss Dior, and their version is called Floral Pink Pepper. It's really, really good, and it's very, very close to that original. So if you still love, you know, that older Miss Dior Eau de Parfum from 2017, which got discontinued in 2021 when this new one came in, it is still something you can get, and it doesn't cost a ton because the Dossier fragrances are pretty inexpensive. So that's just an FYI for people that loved that. So that's really very much my take on the new Miss Dior Eau de Parfum from 2021. It really has that smell to me, and the more it dries down, it gets crazier. Like, it reminds me of not just one kind of scented toy from the 80s, but it actually reminds me of a second one. As this dries down, I gave it another smell, and it smelled exactly like, and I'm not exactly even sure I remember the name of this toy. If you are very knowledgeable of 80s toys, you may know what I'm talking about. It was a short-lived little series of dolls, and they were about that tall, and they could turn into a pillow, like they would turn into a little sachet. The 80s were strange. So anyway, they had like a little skirt that was the pillow, and like you could put the doll, there was a pocket in it, and you could like disguise her. It was all about Transformers in the 80s, like toys that changed into other things, but they were scented, and it smelled exactly like the dry down of this Miss Dior. It is just wild to me. So if you don't feel like you smell that, you may not have that issue at all. To me, overall, this is unfortunately, it's a pleasant fragrance. It's nothing, you know, there's no shade to it that way. Like, nobody's going to smell it and say, hey, you smell bad. Because it is. It's a very pleasant, fruity floral with a very light, you know, musky, woodsy base. Very, very light base. It does not have a strong, like, woodsy base or anything like that. It's more light. It almost reminds me of an eau de toilette, even though it's an eau de parfum, because it has a lightness to it that is not nearly as rich as its predecessor. So I don't think you're going to turn anybody off with this fragrance, but it's definitely not something that stands out in any way. There are some perfumes out there that are kind of generic, but I still really end up enjoying them. I think, honestly, the new Miss Dior Parfum is a little generic, but there's something about the blend. It's just very, very nice. Even though it reminds me of a few other things, the particular blend is really good on my chemistry, and that has a lot to do with it, too. This may not end up smelling so like plastic scented doll on you as it does on me. And if you don't have that specific memory, you're not going to have that issue with it all. But there's something about this that is just uncanny to me. And my scent memories are very, very strong. They always have been. So as soon as I smell that, I'm like, what? That's like a memory in a bottle. It's kind of interesting just for that experience. So if you want to know what those 80s fragranced dolls smelled like, give this a sniff, because you'll know exactly what that was like for kids in the 80s that had those kind of toys. You know, I have no idea how long Dior will keep manufacturing this particular incarnation of Miss Dior's Eau de Parfum, because they tend to change these out so quickly. I mean, literally, we had, what, only 4 years of the 2017 version before they switched that one out and put the 2021 in. And so it's been a couple of years now, and maybe they're kind of getting itchy. I think that's probably why they released the Parfum. Maybe. Because they were sort of like, well, maybe this one's a little bit so let's amp it up. This one is still so nice. Like, even for a dupe, it smells so freaking good to me. It's just so much more distinctive. Yeah. It's such a nicer rose. I love pepper in fragrances in general. I just feel like it gives it this slight, spicy, almost a little metallic freshness that's just really lovely. And I really enjoyed this one so much more. So given another couple years, we'll probably get yet another another Miss Dior Eau de Parfum. But I hope you enjoyed my funny thoughts about this one. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I have one more Miss Dior. I think I'm going to do the Eau de Toilette. There are so many of them, so many flankers. I've been trying to review as many of them as possible. But it is pretty funny because it gets a little wild with the Miss Diors. It's like, how many Miss Diors are they? This girl gets all over the place. She's everywhere. So I'm trying to get them all done, and I think there were two other ones. There was a Blooming Bouquet and a, I don't know if it's still around, but it seemed like a short-lived release called maybe Rose and Roses. They have really put out too many Miss Diors. They need to simplify this mess. And the other one that I never got to smell, that so many people still to this day talk about, is the Miss Dior Cherie. Cherie was supposed, I mean, everyone says that one was so good, and it's a shame that they don't still make it, because obviously there's a lot of people that still love that formulation and would absolutely buy it again if they made it. So if anyone from Dior is out there listening, I'm just saying, there's people buying old bottles of that probably don't even smell as great anymore, you know, for crazy prices out there. Why don't you just, you know, go in your archives, bring it back, because there's plenty of people that would go after it. So, rambling thoughts about Miss Dior. Share yours with me if you so desire. Let me know if there's anything you would like me to review in the future, and I will try to get to it. Take care, y'all, and I'll talk to you soon.